We've got John Barkley, who is Chief of Police in Treasure Island, which is right on the Gulf of Mexico, west of Tampa. Chief, really thank you for being here at this time. I know you guys got a lot going on. And I want to start with what's being forecast to hit your area right now, because the National Hurricane Center is forecasting 10 to 15 feet of peak storm surge for Treasure Island, or 3 to 4.5 meters, and is expected to take a direct hit from Milton. And I saw on the city website that starting tonight, there will be no access to the island. So what preparations are you putting in place right now? What are you preparing for?
Well, the interesting thing is we've been in storm mode, recovery mode, and back in storm mode now for 2 weeks straight. So, Hurricane Helene, which was a different type of storm, that paralleled the coastline. That wasn't a wind event, it was a water event for us, brought over 8 foot of storm surge here. We had residents who, for Helene, were shoulder deep in their homes in water because we had a lot of people who chose to stay. It seems like a lot of people have heeded the warnings. At 7 p.m. tonight, we locked down access to the island. We are constantly driving through all our neighborhoods now, making sure people have left, encouraging those to leave. I look out my office window right now. Unfortunately, it seems people have heeded the warning because the streets are empty except for emergency vehicles.
And look, as you mentioned, you guys have been in hurricane mode for 2 weeks now. This is happening less than 2 weeks after Helene officially hit. And I was talking to Tampa's mayor a few days ago, and she told me that their crews were really trying to gather up as much debris as possible because, she didn't want them to become projectiles when Hurricane Milton came through. And I wonder how much of a dynamic that is for you all on Treasure Island, and if that's an effort you all are seriously trying to get done.
Yeah, that's something that's unique for this. In Floridians, you learn one of the first things you do prior to a storm is you want to remove any debris that could fly around. And what Hurricane Helene did, it inundated people's homes with water. So our debris piles, which unfortunately still exist in many parts of the city, consist of drywall, carpeting, appliances, furniture, all sorts of things that I can't even imagine what it's going to look like if this thing hits us with the amount of winds that it's forecast to. That's something that's very unique to this situation. And, the governor has sent down extra resources, and they've opened up landfills and stuff to try to get this stuff off the streets as quickly as possible. But in reality, it's not going to be in time. So that's going to add up a completely different dynamic to this storm.
Yeah, and maybe aside from projectiles, from an infrastructure perspective, how does Helene's damage complicate withstanding Milton here?
Yeah, it's compounding it. That was that was enough. If we had a choice, obviously we don't want any more. And Helene on its own, and just being a water event without a wind event, it was going to take months, if not years, to recover. And now this thing is coming behind it with a wind and water event, and possibly multiple feet above what we just had. So it's kind of like you're starting all over again. I think people had pretty much resigned themselves to the fact that, okay, we can rebuild, we can get this thing going. I don't know what this is going to look like after this storm passes by.
And look, I'm sure you've been in Florida for a while. I used to live in Florida for a time. I mean, Floridians are used to sort of hurricanes, storms, you name it, coming through, evacuating, not evacuating, boarding up, not boarding up, sort of wrestling with those decisions. I heard you a little bit say that it does seem people are listening to the warnings there on Treasure Island. Was it more difficult or less so to convince people this time versus when Helene came in? I just wonder at what point people realized, okay, actually this is something really serious that we've got to get out of town for.
Well, I hate using this term, or I hate hearing this term when they talk about weather events, but unprecedented was used for Helene because we had an unprecedented amount of storm surge here in the Tampa Bay area. So that woke a lot of people up. I mean, a lot of people like, yeah, we've had a few feet of water before. We'll ankle deep in our home, we'll mop it out, and we'll be good to go again. This was completely different. It scared a lot of people. And unfortunately, we had fatalities right here on Treasure Island from people that did not evacuate. People actually drowned in their own homes. And that's avoidable. I think that really hit home with a lot of people. That really hit hard. And, they realized that there isn't any possessions in their home that's as valuable as their lives.
Now, you can always replace objects in your home, can't replace a life. John Barkley, Treasure Island Chief of Police, really appreciate you taking the time and keep us posted on how things go. We'd love to check in as this storm hits.